Thank you. We've been very fortunate. Thank you.
So, what made you write the book in the first place, please?
Well, really, it was the idea of putting certain principles, several of them from Endless Referrals. That was a how-to book, and really that book was written back in the '90s, and it was for entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought immense value to their customers and clients, but they didn't necessarily feel confident in terms of building the kinds of relationships with people where people wanted to do business with them directly and refer them to others. And as you know, relationship building is such an important part of the sales and leadership process of the human process. And so I always thought it would be great if we could take the basic premise of endless referrals, which was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, and put that into a business parable. So, I kind of sat on the idea for a number of years, and then I fortunately in the early 2000s began writing a monthly column for a magazine where John David Mann was the editor in chief. And even back then, John in his circle was known as a brilliant, brilliant writer, and he had ghostwritten, another person's book, and it turned out to, it was a fantastic book. And he's such a great guy, humble man, and he was a great editor. And I always told him, he wrote my stuff better than I wrote my stuff, and so when I had this just idea regarding this book, I brought it to John and I just said, you're the only one I want to do this with, and really I want you to be the lead writer and storyteller because you can do things with this book I couldn't even dream of doing. And he and his then fiance, now wife, Anna, they were visiting her mom across the state in Florida from me. So one afternoon they drove over, about a 4-hour drive. We had about a 3-hour dinner and discussed the idea of the book and different aspects of it and what we would expect from it and what we wanted it to accomplish. And about 3 weeks later, he called me and said, "Yeah, I think we have a good thing here. Let's do this." So, we wrote it in, like 3 months, although again, he was the lead writer, the storyteller. He was but, and then we got turned down by, I think, 24, publishing houses in New York before the 25th one took us on, and which turned out great. And, they've been a fantastic, excuse me, fantastic partner. And that's really how the book came about. And then, we've had several more in the series since that time.
Brilliant. So there was loads of lessons for me in there. And the first one, I suppose, started with it's a story about a gentleman called Joe, who's a salesperson, and you see loads of people at the end of the month, always fighting for that last one, always showing their
Mhm.
desperation.
Right.
And I think Joe and his colleagues were pretty much the same there. But he got a lifelong lesson there. So how does that come about, this lesson? And why do you think all salespeople will never track their targets every 7, 14, 21, 28 days? They always do it too late before it's the end of a month. And you lose your value, you lose your relationship then because you come across as desperate and commission breath.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the big lessons that Joe learned was that, nobody, and I say this whenever I speak at sales conferences, I'll say that nobody is going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? No one's going to buy from you because you need the money. And no one's going to buy from you just because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you. They're going to do business with you because they believe that ultimately they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And when you think about it, that's the only reason anybody should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. So Joe, who was, both a go-getter, which is a good thing because a go-getter is a person of action, but he was also kind of a go-taker, right? He felt it was all about him. It was about his quota. It was about what people owed him or what he needed. Where again, that's not why people do business with you. So when he met Pindar and then the other mentors, he had a real shift in focus. He understood that when you can make it not about yourself, but make it about others, when you can move from a focus on getting to a focus on giving. And when we say giving, Stephen, in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. It's understanding that doing so is it's not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. Because again, people are going to do business with you for their reasons, not for ours.
Why do you think so many people look at a transaction then as a one-off rather than building that relationship client for life?
Well, I think in many ways it's the way they've been taught. It's the way they've seen it done. And, our belief systems are typically a combination of what we experience, from the very beginning, whether it's, a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, and everything around us. And, what do you see when you see whether it's on TV or in the movies, and you see it so much transactional? You see the good salespeople are always slick and clever, and it's about them, right? And then you might experience certain salespeople who have sold to you, and they were like that, right? So you think, well, if I'm a salesperson, that's what it must be. When that's not what selling is about. The old English root of the word sell is selan, which meant to give. So when you're selling, you're literally giving. Now, someone might say, well, that's fine, Berg, but that's semantics. I mean, what are you really giving when you're selling? Well, John and I suggest that when you're giving, or when you're selling, you're giving time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and most of all, extraordinary value, right? So that's one reason. So until people understand really what selling is, they may see it as something transactional as opposed to relational. Now, there's one other reason too, is that it seems intuitively as though you're going to make the sale quicker by being transactional as opposed to relational, when that's really not the case at all. Because when you're transactional, you tend to focus on yourself and the money, commission breath, as you called it earlier, as opposed to the other person. Well, when that's the case, they're probably less likely to trust you and want to buy from you. It's the people who are relationship focused, other focused, relationship oriented, who do make it about the other person, that inspires confidence, that inspires trust, and creates that what we call benevolent context for that sale to take place.
Brilliant, thank you. And Ben, thanks very much for watching and sharing your comment, your giving knowledge. And if anybody else watching and got any questions for Bob, please feel free to ask them. I'm sure
Yeah,
Bob will be delighted.
I can't see the comments, just so you know. So if anybody has a question, Stephen, I'm absolutely honored to receive it and do my best to answer. But just so you know, I can't see it myself.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So there are 5 laws that are talked about in the book. So would you be kind enough to go through what those laws are and why they're so important? And for me, what I loved about the book is I'm very much an action taker and a to-do person. So, I reached out to you and I was incredibly grateful and surprised within about 3 minutes of me sending a message. I had a lovely message for you back, replying, firstly thanking me, but also saying that, yes, you would come on this. And I'm incredibly grateful and it's a real honor for me. So
Well,
thank you. But one of the things that I find is most people, will listen to this. And in fact, you've got the most amazing bookshelf behind you. And this and there's 2 types of people, the self-developers and the shelf developers. And most people's notes end up on the shelf rather than self-developing. So I love the fact that Pindar made sure that after they discussed every one of these laws, he had to take action, which was great. So how did that come about, and why do you think the best people are the ones that take action, and even if it's a learning rather than it's not a success?
Yeah, well, John and I definitely wanted to put that in as part of the book, that Because you're right. It's so easy to read something or listen to something and think, yeah, it's a good idea. I'll do that one of these days. But we know that when action's not taken, nothing's going to happen. We always say you can have the nicest thoughts, best ideas, the greatest of intent, but unless action is put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. It simply cannot happen. And that's why we had Pindar, share that with Joe, that he was happy to help him, but Joe had to take the action, right? Didn't have to be perfect action. That wasn't the issue, right? And it wasn't thinking about why it might work or why it wouldn't, or that. No, just take action. Just do the thing. And yeah, so that was very important. We're big believers. That's why we like to say, be a go-getter, person of action, and a go-giver, someone who's absolutely laser focused on providing immense value to others. Be a go-getter and a go-giver. Just don't be a go-taker.
So I'm going to come back.
Oh,
How do you get? I'm going to answer. I'm going to ask you, but just as you've got my mind thinking. So
okay.
how do those how do those go getters actually go and get it? Actually become a go doer?
You make the decision to act. You just do it. I mean, there's no magic bullet. Um, you just make that decision. I wish there was some easier way to do it. Or actually, it is. It's simple, not always easy, as the saying goes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the magic happens outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, and you can also build on your small successes, which helps expand your comfort zone. You know? So there is a time and place for acting outside your comfort zone, but when you build on your small successes, what you do is you increase that comfort zone with which you can operate. And so, you would ask about the 5 laws, and basically they're the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. Law number 1 is all about your focus on the value you're providing another human being. Now, value is different from price, because price is the dollar amount or the pounds amount or the pesos amount, or what yen amount, whatever it happens to be. And that is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to a person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, right? And here's, while you make a very healthy profit. So it's got to be both parties advance in the process. The key with this is understanding that value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not about what we think is of value to that person or what we think should be of value to that person. It's what they value. And the only way we can know this is to ask questions and listen, really listen with that intent to understand, as opposed to listen with our own agenda. Okay. And to not assume that, even that not to assume that we understand what they say when they say it, because again, we all come from our own set of beliefs, and we tend to believe that other people see the world basically the same way we see the world, which isn't necessarily true at all. So it's politely and diplomatically clarifying what they say to make sure that what they said is what we heard and what they meant is what we understood. Okay. So when we do that, now we're in a position to provide value. Value is that experience the other person has. It's the entire buying experience. And it's a combination of excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation that we bring to the table. Now, law number 2 is the law of compensation. And this says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So it's not just bringing great value to the life of one person. It's how many lives you impact with that outstanding value. Okay. Law number three is the law of influence. And this says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. No, not in a self sacrificial or martyrish or doormatty kind of way. Not at all. It's simply understanding, as Joe learned from several of the mentors, and as you and I discussed earlier in this conversation, it's understanding that the golden rule of sales of business is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And here's the thing: there's no faster, more powerful um, way to to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus. Or as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, it's making your win all about the other person's win. Now, law number four, the law of authenticity, says that the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And in this part of the story, Deborah Davenport, the mentor in this chapter, shared a very important lesson, and that is all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are all very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. People feel comfortable with you. People feel safe with you. And why wouldn't they? They know exactly who they're getting. And as human beings, it's a very powerful element of human nature that we desire consistency in those we deal with. Why? Because we want to make sense of our world in a world that often doesn't make sense to us, right? We want consistency in a world that's often inconsistent. So when you show up as yourself, now you're really filling that person with a confidence that they know who it is they're getting, and you really need that both to elicit trust and sustain that trust. And then law number five is the law of receptivity, which says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Well, this really means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other, it's both, right? We breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving, we breathe in, which is receiving. Well, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're two sides of the very same coin. But Stephen, that's not the message we get from the world around us. The world around us, and I don't know about where you are in the UK, but certainly in the States, there is so much anti-prosperity messaging that goes on. I mean, you'd think that if you've made a lot of money, you did it on the backs of others or by keeping others down or by doing some nefarious. Now, it's a big world. There's people who do things in ways that we don't agree with, obviously. But in any kind of market-based economy where no one is forced to do business with you, right? The only way you can earn a lot of money is to serve a lot of people, serve them with great value because they're not buying for your reasons, they're buying for their reasons, to place their interests first because again, it's they're doing it for themselves, not for you, to be authentic. And then once you've done this, you've got to be open to receiving because if you let those anti-prosperity messages get into your head and then worse into your unconscious, now you'll find all sorts of ways to sabotage yourself and keep yourself from earning the kind of income that you've deserved. Here's the thing. It's not are you a giver or a receiver any more than it's do you breathe out or breathe in, right? You're a giver and a receiver. But what is that the giving comes first. This is universal law. These are laws of nature, um, human nature, economic nature, physical nature. You plant before you harvest. It's not the other way around. You sow before you reap. Doesn't matter how much you wish it could be opposite. It isn't, right? As Pindar, said to Joe early in the story, some people approach a fireplace with the attitude of, first you give me some heat and some fire, then I'll throw on some logs and newspaper and light a match and say, well, life doesn't work that way. So you do need to give value first, consistently, right?
Okay.
And then allow yourself to receive.
Okay, well, consistently is my favorite C word. So you're spot on. It's about doing things consistently. There's a couple of things I'd like to ask you from what you said, if possible, please. So one of the questions that's come in is that somebody's really happy to be a giver, and they give loads of value, but they really find it hard to receive help from other people who want to help them on their journey, but they just don't like accepting people's help. How can you advise them?
Okay, so this goes right back into the lessons that we have received and unconsciously bought into since the time we were little kids, right? And we're taught that it's better to give than it is to receive, that you're selfish if you receive, if you're right. It's righteous to give, but it's horrible to receive, right? And these are the messages. And if you grow up with these, and or it might not be just growing up. No, I'm not talking just family or anything, but your surroundings, what you learn in school, again, what you see on TV and in movies, and get these messages. Then it's not that it's in your conscious. You could deal with that. It's more insidiously. It's in your unconscious. And so you feel a disconnect if you've been brought up with good values such as honesty and integrity and generosity and all these neat things, right? But and that's conscious, but in your unconscious, it's evil to receive, or money is bad, right? Or help from others is a horrible thing, or right? Well, what are you going to do? There's going to be a disconnect between your conscious and your unconscious. And as you know, which one wins, right? The unconscious always. And so here's what I suggest. Um, First congratulate yourself for acknowledging it's an issue, because it's only when you're aware, when you're conscious of a problem, are you in a position to overcome it. Secondly, start questioning your premises. Every time you find yourself resisting receiving anything, ask yourself why. Don't judge yourself. Don't get mad at yourself. Just ask yourself why. Where is this coming from? Why is my unconscious telling me that I'm wrong or would feel guilty about receiving this, whether it's money or help, from someone or whatever it happens to be, okay? Then start questioning those premises. Start diving deep into them. Somebody says, in this country, you hear a lot of people say millionaires shouldn't exist. Well, ask yourself why. Tell me not tell me, but I mean to yourself. Tell me why. If you find yourself going, oh yeah, why do you believe that? Okay. Now let's say this millionaire did it through fraud or force. Well, of course they should be in jail, but that's not how most people make their millions. For most people, it's because they provided a product or a service that other people voluntarily purchased, right? And they found ways to provide enough value to the marketplace that they got wealthy. And also, by doing that, they've been able to build a big enough company that they've hired others, providing jobs for others. And those jobs help those people to not only survive and thrive, but to spend their money as consumers at other places. It helps people hire other, right? So should a millionaire not exist? No, we need millionaires, right? And that kind of answers the question then. It's like, well, no, there is no reason for saying millionaires shouldn't, again, assuming they did it without fraud, and that's the case most of the time. Otherwise, sure, they should be in jail, but that's not usually the case. So when you question the premises like that, now you're opening up a whole new world. Now, when you go past a big mansion, and if you find yourself saying, Oh, I wonder what they did to get that. Question your premises. Why are you asking that question instead of, wow, I wonder how many people they found a way to serve in order to get that, right? Okay, now, once we started doing this, what I'm going to suggest you do is allow yourself to receive in small portions. So, somebody opens the door for you to go through first. Instead of saying, "Oh, no, 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 I couldn't," you say, "Oh, thank you. Very kind of you." Somebody pays you a compliment. Instead of going, "Oh, no, no, no," you say, "Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much." Boom. You get a small check. Awesome. Very good. Very nice. Thank you, universe, or thank you, God, or thank you, however, right? And then keep building on that small success. That's what we were talking about earlier, building on your small successes. You're doing that, you're moving up, and it's a little more comfortable every time. A big thing with me, right, when I was working myself through this was I would never let someone pay for dinner. Never. And finally, somebody said to me, I really resent this. You always want to pick up the check. What do you think? I can't afford to pay, or we're not good friends. You're taking away my, ability to spring for the check, right? Well, of course, right? So that became something with me to let people pay. So now, one more thing, Stephen, and that's this: make a study of prosperity. There are people like Randy Gage, the late Bob Proctor, David Nagel, Sharon Lechter, Ellen Rogan, Ken Honda, so many others. There are a number of people. I don't mean to leave anybody out. They blog, they post, they do videos, they have books, they teach on prosperity and prosperity consciousness. And 99% of what they teach is not the how to, other than how to get past those mental blocks, those emotional blocks. So make a proactive study of prosperity. And that's how you get past this unwillingness to receive.
Right. One final question, because I'm very conscious of time and very, very grateful. Just want to come back on value. How does a person add value to others without costing too much, especially in these challenging economic environment at the moment?
Sure. It's finding ways to do things that another person is going to appreciate. That doesn't have to cost you money. Again, we talked about the excellence you bring. It's the people skills that you bring. Do you make a person feel better after having been in conversation about you with you than they were beforehand? Right? It's attention to detail. It's learning things about them that other people might not even think to learn. Right? It's empathy. It's dealing with someone in a way that you may not know what's bothering them, but you can tell that something is, and you communicate through who you are and what you do, that you're there to help them through it. It's expressing gratitude. All these things. Now, let me give you one quick example. After the book first came out, and that was during the 2008 financial crisis, we received an email from a guy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he talked about he was a roofer. He repaired roofs. And at that time, the roofing industry, like every other industry here in the US, pretty much was really going through hard times. People who, even the ones who knew they needed a new roof or have their roofs repaired, they didn't want to do it. They couldn't afford to wait for the payment from their insurance company. So he told me at first what every other roofer was doing, pulling back on value and seeing how much could he get and how little could he give. And he realized that wasn't helping him, right? That wasn't helping his business, but all his colleagues were doing that. So he found a way, and this is to me so brilliant. And it's a perfect example of how you provide value without it costing you a lot of money. He researched how to deal with the insurance companies in such a way that he could help people get their money quicker with less aggravation and the most they were supposed to be able to receive. So now he'd go up to people whose roofs were damaged. He wouldn't say, "Do you want your roof repaired?" He knew they wanted it repaired. That wasn't the issue. What he told them was, "I have found out I can help walk you through how to get your money fast, completely, and with no aggravation from your insurance company." And his business just went wild. He found a way to bring value, to add value to others.
What a lovely example to end on. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to get hold of you, how do they find you, please? And where do they go and buy The Go Giver?
The best way is just go to burg.com. They can read a chapter of the book if they'd like to see if they like it. While they're there, they can also subscribe to my daily impact email, which I send out Monday through Friday early in the morning, which, well, it will be late morning y'all's time, but early morning our time. And yeah, we invite everybody to visit burg.com.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. I'm incredibly grateful. I know you are very busy, gentlemen, and I know you've got a very busy day today. So thank you for giving me that time. I'm incredibly grateful, as
Thank
are everybody watching and listening. So thank you all as well, whether you're watching now or on replay. Thank you. And Bob, thank you very much. Grateful for your time. Thank you.
My honor. Thank you, Stephen.